Good evening. Today is September 4th, 2021. I'm Robert Cressionnie.
I'm John Gatsis.
Welcome to America in Danger. We have got a lot to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about some media and political lies, politicians lying.
In other words, they're talking, they're communicating.
Exactly, their lips are moving.
Right,
exactly.
that's right.
We want to talk about the downfall of this nation and whether we're becoming a third world nation. We'll talk about that a little later in the show.
At least a declining power, perhaps.
Declining power, exactly. And we're going to wrap up tonight talking a little bit about the Texas Senate Bill 8, the abortion bill that's so prominent in the news tonight, and we'll cover that in a little bit. But starting out, I'd like to cover some of the lies that we've been told. The media, it doesn't seem to be able to grasp why no one believes them these days. Or let me rephrase that, why only a small brain-dead segment of the population believes them.
Yeah, they don't understand the complete loss of credibility they've sustained.
Exactly. They live in such a bubble that they think that they can just continue to tell lies.
Right.
But, this all started out before the 2016 election.
Right. Actually, it's been going on for a long time, but they were a little more stealthy about it,
They could spread them out a little bit.
Right. They peppered news with enough credible stories and true reporting that it was easy to just say, well, they've kind of got a bias, but they're fairly doing the journalistic thing here. But that wasn't true then, but it's especially not true now.
Absolutely. One of the first lies that we were told coming into the 2016 election was that Trump can never win.
Right.
Hillary's got it in the bag.
Right.
Well, it didn't.
It didn't, right. Well, and a lot of people saw that, I think, as the beginning of the death of expertise.
Yeah.
Because and that's part of why one of the myriad reasons they hated him so much. He really revealed them to be utter and complete fools. I mean, anybody can predict an outcome and be an expert on a subject when the outcome's kind of already fixed and set up. And that one, and I'm not talking about the 2020 election, I'm talking about the 2016. They kind of thought that was in the bag. They felt like, well, we already have a lot of mechanisms in place for making sure that we get the entire media complex, everything is in place to make sure that Hillary is the winner.
In fact, she opted not to campaign in a few states because she was assured that she had them in the bag.
So it was a confluence of things, but the partly her just being a bad candidate, okay. Many people simply didn't like her, okay, and her attitude about it's just her right and it's just her turn to be president. So that didn't sit well with people. At the end of the day, they got a little sloppy, okay, and enough of the population, especially in those Rust Belt states and the so-called Reagan Democrat types from the past, they said, this Trump guy's making some sense. We don't care that he says some intemperate things or has made a few comments that upset the talking heads on the cognoscenti on the morning shows. We don't care about that. And they voted for him. And to everybody's shock and surprise, including me, I really didn't think it was likely to happen. And I was pleased. But that was absolutely a lie, and they said it with such confidence. And you can go look on YouTube, and you can pull up the clips of everybody getting the vapors over the fact that he did in fact win.
Absolutely.
And they were mad about it because it made them look stupid, and frankly, many of them are stupid.
Really incompetent.
Yeah.
And they doubled down and said that Brexit would never happen.
Well, that's right.
Brexit will never happen.
Right.
That can't happen.
Right.
And it did.
It did happen. Right.
And they also lied and said, well, Europe is going to fall apart. Oh, this will be a disaster. Great Britain, no, they're going to flounder and regret their decision.
Right. Well, they said that about Trump. I mean, what did Paul Krugman, the New York Times, Nobel Prize winning economist, which they need to take the prize back. I mean, he said when they asked him when would the economy recover, he said never. After Trump won, he said, well, never. The stock market's going to tank. Everything happened exactly in opposite fashion.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Absolutely.
And the lesson, I'll interject as we start, going down this list. I mean, to me, the lesson here is that while some things are counterintuitive in life, most things are not.
Right.
Okay. I mean, general and special relativity, they're counterintuitive, right? I mean, they just don't meet with your understanding of how the world works, and everything about them doesn't make sense. Quantum physics.
Yeah.
But a lot of these issues, the reason people are starting to turn against these so-called experts and these liars is because they can see they have experiential evidence based on their life, on the lives they live. And they said, what, this just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to me that we're going to tax people into prosperity.
Exactly.
Okay, those kinds of things. And so I would implore people, just invoke your common sense a little bit when you're being told some of these things.
Yeah.
Now, it's not as hard to do these days. Let me tell you, well, there's no such thing as a boy and a girl. Those are social constructs.
That's right.
All right, I'm sorry. That not only is it just counterintuitive, it's just stupid and nonsense. That's fantasy cartoon world thinking.
Well, it is, and there again, that's an indication that these people live in a bubble.
They live in a bubble.
They live in a bubble. The whole Trump-Russia collusion thing.
Another one.
For 4 years, we listened to that. Actually, longer than that.
Right.
And it never turned out to be anything.
Right. One giant gaslight.
One giant gaslight.
Right. And people actually, and all that really was going on there was that they used some completely specious claims from the so-called dossier, the Steele dossier, to justify spying on him and his campaign and his administration.
Exactly. Okay. And since then, we know that the FBI lied to get warrants.
Right.
The DOJ falsified things.
Right.
It just went on and on and on, and then Mueller, his report ended up being a nothing burger, as Hillary likes to say.
In fact, and embedded in the lie of the Mueller report was the lie that Mueller was competent. When we actually saw him, okay, well, this is, it was like a Joe Biden moment. I mean, he was clearly past his prime and even past his decline. Yeah. I mean, in terms of being capable of, it was actually sad.
It was.
I actually had a modicum of sympathy for the guy at the time. I thought, boy, somebody's really just making him do this because he's not up to it.
No, he's not.
And the result was fundamentally exonerating. Yeah. And yet, if you poll people today, many of them still somehow believe that Trump won the election
through Russian collusion. Yeah.
And what actually did the Russians do? I think they bought $100,000 worth of Facebook ads.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Maybe that was and somehow that's supposed to have swayed the entire election.
Yeah. I would like to see a dollar value put on the collusion of Facebook in censoring posts and those kind. If you had to put a dollar figure on that, that would probably be over $1 billion in advertising cost right there.
Well, that's one of the reasons that and it's appealing. They often talk about, we need to have campaign finance. We need to make it so elections are federally financed. No, because that doesn't take into fact the in-kind free donations that the media gives certain candidates.
Exactly.
And so if you have to offset that, you've got to spend a lot of money to offset the inherent, broadcast media arm of your opponent. In this case, it's almost always the Democrats. Yeah.
Well, speaking of the media, they ran with the Jussie Smollett story.
There's another lie.
A couple of MAGA wearing, Trump
MAGA hat wearing Trump. That's right.
Late one night as I was coming home with a Subway sandwich in my hand.
Right. At 2 a.m. in Chicago during a polar vortex.
Exactly. But I never dropped that sandwich.
Right.
Never dropped that sandwich. But they put a noose around my neck. Yeah.
Right.
And the media just ran with that.
They ran with it, and as I recall, Kamala Harris said something about something. What was her tweet? Something about modern day lynchings or some ridiculous nonsense that that was a little preview of what a terrible political entity she is.
Absolutely. To carry on the MAGA theme, the media claimed that a MAGA hat wearing youth attacked a Native American elder.
What was it? Covington Catholic.
Right.
I read a statistic the other day that said that liberal white women under the age of 30, the majority of us, I'll just say that's 51%, it's probably more like 70%, have a diagnosed mental condition. And I believe it based on my observations of what I've seen. Yeah, I've seen that in a couple places, and I think it's true, based on my personal experience.
And you mentioned a lot of educated people believe this stuff, and I've seen that a lot of highly educated men with liberal arts degrees tend to buy into these things.
Right.
Fewer in the engineering and the sciences.
Right.
But the liberal arts indoctrination, I guess, conditions people to accept these kinds of things more readily than...
or you can flip it on its head. I mean, engineers and scientists, but especially engineers, they tend to be driven really by logic and results.
Yeah.
pure scientists often are driven by logic, but they're not necessarily driven by results. They're driven by more of an academic pursuit of a result, and they're just as human as everybody else. They falsify data. They have a theory. They want to prove it. That's their end result. An engineer's end result is a thing that works.
Right.
It's an act of applied science to get an outcome, which is tangible. It's difficult to really. I used to always joke back in the day, because I studied engineering, and I used to joke back in the day when people would present, alternative medicine, right? Well, the crystals and all the mumbo jumbo, and I thought, I wonder when why hasn't anybody come up with an alternative engineering? Because it would be revealed as fraudulent in 5 seconds.
That's what we're seeing. We're seeing a push toward woke engineering or politically corrected engineering,
which will just be the destruction.
Ethno-engineering, right? We have ethno-mathematics.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, this comes under the rubric of one of these lies: is that the country is racist, or that white supremacy encompasses or comprises things like mathematics. They're not now saying that people aren't given the opportunity to study mathematics. They're saying that mathematics itself is racist. Okay, that somehow that's a construct.
Right.
Well, okay. I mean, I don't know of any society throughout the history of the world that has come up with different mathematical systems for describing things. I mean, they might have different symbols and different ways to approach it, but there's always an accurate result that's consistent across cultures. And the fact that some cultures have been more prodigious in their creation of mathematical solutions and mathematical analyses, for our various problems in society, that's just the way the cookie crumbles.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just how it goes. But to call that inherently racist, to try and do away with it, you will put this country and Western civilization back in the Dark Ages so fast.
Oh yeah.
With that thinking.
Well, I'm waiting to see a bridge built with ethno-mathematics.
Well, I think we kind of had
ethno-engineering.
Well, wasn't there a bridge that failed in Florida a couple of years ago that was actually built by some female engineers, and they actually incorporated some more aesthetic considerations, and they ignored certain hard and mathematical principles of force and shear and some of the other.
That's my understanding.
And it failed. So medicine lends itself to that kind of thinking a little bit, because there is a little bit of art to medicine. It's not an exact science, and so people tend to fall prey to some mumbo jumbo sometimes. And frankly, I would too. I mean, because it isn't hard and fast. I mean, right? I mean, if you're terminal and somebody says, well, if you inflict bee stings on yourself, you found this has therapeutic benefit.
Yep.
If I'm facing a stage 4 diagnosis of some kind, I'll go the bee sting route, right?
Exactly.
I want to live.
Might even try some crystals.
That's right. But at the end of the day, that stuff's all baloney.
Mostly, yes. Yes, it is. We were told another lie, that Donald Trump was racist for shutting down flights from China when the COVID was first breaking out, and Nancy Pelosi even encouraged people to go down to Chinatown and visit, and there were other politicians who encouraged hugging a Chinese person.
Yeah, which that's just ridiculous.
It's absolutely ridiculous. Compound that with, well, don't wear a mask. You don't need to wear a mask. Oh, you gotta wear the mask.
And now you gotta wear 2.
You gotta wear 2 now.
And now 5-year-olds have to wear them. 2-year-olds have to wear them.
Exactly. Oh, we're just following the science.
Well, and of course, you predicated this whole segment on why do these people think their credibility is shot? Well, because of everything that we're saying now. I mean,
that's the whole point.
Do this, don't do. When the vaccine was being developed, you had the current vice president, then candidate, saying, "Well, I wouldn't take any vaccine that Trump was connected with."
Exactly.
Joe Biden.
Exactly.
Now it is some kind of act of medical heresy. You're a baby killer if you say, "I don't want to take the vaccine. I'm not comfortable." I wasn't comfortable with it in any scenario, just because of the way it was rolled out and rushed out and the highly politicized nature of it. I just, and I calculate. I'm looking at my odds and risk associated with COVID. And I know you've got some other data here that kind of describes that, but heretofore we have lived in a free society where people make informed choices based on the information. I'm not an anti-vaxxer by nature.
Right.
I believe in the general science associated with tricking your immune system into believing that it's been infected with something and countering an infection, giving you immunity. I'm not sure this falls in that category. These mRNA vaccines are weird technology. The creator of the what's his name? Malone, Robert Malone, the creator, the inventor of the mRNA vaccine, says, I don't recommend you take it. Well, you know, I mean, I think I should be, I don't think I should be castigated for taking that into account a little bit. And considering that and weighing it in my decision when I got somebody like Aaron Burnett on CNN telling me that I'm, you know, that empty-headed buffoon. Okay, I'm supposed to trust her? Yeah, no. So, yeah.
You know, people. And we all understand that there are vaccines out there for measles, rubella, diphtheria, all these things. That's fine. That's right. Most of those diseases, if you get them, it's a big deal. It's a big deal, and there's a very good chance that you'll die from it. That's right. However, on this, and we'll talk about this a little later, but the chances of dying from COVID are relatively slim. Well, when it comes right down to it. They're negligible for large segments of the population, especially the working population. That's right. Now, that's not to say that some people in every age category die. You know, we've had 354 children die under the age of 17. Right, so during the entire pandemic. During the 19 months of the pandemic. However, we got to remember that 18,000 died of various accidents. Right. You know, several thousand died of child abuse. Right. But 354 died of COVID. Right. How many due to drownings? Alone. Plenty. Yeah. Plenty. But we've got a full page more of these lies. We're not going to have time to cover them all tonight. I mean, maybe we just, as we get close to the end of the day, we just read them. We'll just read them out, exactly. And, we'll let you use your common sense to go, yeah, you're right, they did say that. Yeah. And then they said this, and they said that. So I think it's good to hear these. So we'll revisit these a little later, but right now we got to take a little break. And when we return, we're going to be talking about, are we falling toward third world nation status? Sure seems that way to me. But we'll be right back to talk about it, so stay tuned for more America in Danger.
Hey y'all, Russ Varnell here from the Russ Varnell Show right here on WHIG-TV. I want to invite you, and you, hey, and you too, to come see myself and the whole Two Country Band Saturday, September the 11th at the Nashville Arts Center in Nash County, right there in Nashville on the main drive. Everybody knows about the Nashville Arts Center. What a great place to go see shows and hear music. The old church right there on the main drive close to the courthouse in Nashville. Come see myself and the whole Two Country Band Saturday, September the 11th at 7 p.m. You can bring your grandma, your granddaddy, your grandchildren, your young'uns, your sons and daughters, and just bring yourself. Saturday, September the 11th at 7 p.m. Going to be a big time. Myself and the whole Two Country Band will be looking for you. Y'all come, okay?
Hey, this is John Woodruff of Premier Equipment Company of Rocky Mountain Infield. Been shopping for a zero-turn mower lately. You've probably noticed that inventory is getting hard to come by. So come on down and see what we've got. We've got a showroom full. We have a showroom full of Exmark and Grasshopper zero-turn mowers. Everything from commercial to residential, everything in between. We've got a good relationship with our distributors. They tell us when we sell these, they've got more on the way. If you've been in the market for a zero-turn mower, come see me, John Woodruff from Premier Equipment.
Premier Equipment is open during the week from 8 to 5:30 and on the weekends from 8 to 12.
Are you afraid to answer the phone because of bill collectors? A Chapter 13 plan can help. Chapter 13 allows people with too many bills to work out a debt repayment plan under federal law. It helps you control your debts instead of your debts controlling you. Chapter 13 stops creditors from harassing you and stops repossessions and foreclosures. It allows you to answer the phone again without fear or worry. Call H. Frank Allen, Attorney at Law, a debt relief agency providing bankruptcy relief under the Bankruptcy Code.
All right, we are back, and we're going to talk a little bit about, is America becoming a third world nation? Now, I think we probably should let everyone know what a third world nation is.
Yeah, good to define it, because I think we all have an idea of what that means, and it's probably conveys fairly negative connotations.
It actually does. In fact, third world nation is a less favored term today. The politically correct term is developing nation or undeveloped nation, because you don't want to be derogatory about these situations.
Right.
Third world nation is typically defined by the lack of a middle class.
Okay.
No middle class. There's a large lower class living in poverty,
right,
and a very small upper class running the show.
Like most communist countries.
Pretty much every communist country.
Yeah.
Exactly. There's a lack of productivity and a lack of industry. A lot of times that's coupled with a lack of resources, although Afghanistan is not lacking resources.
And most of these places aren't lacking resources.
They're lacking the drive and the ability to develop those resources.
They've got Well, because of the aforementioned socialism and communism and those structures, those government structures, they completely. Now, this is where we talk about counterintuitive. It's counterintuitive to take away a person's incentive to profit from his own fruits of his own labor. And so when you impose that on a person, you get low productivity.
That's right. You get low productivity. Exactly.
It's that simple, people. I mean, really. It just is. I mean, it's just, that's not a complex concept.
I'm being told we have no sound, so we'll have to mouth our words.
Okay, well, I don't know sign.
Yeah.
I don't know sign language.
We could do sign, but I'm not sure if the sign would be ready for primetime TV.
Right.
Anyway.
Well, if we literally have no sound, then maybe we should just put some graphs up on the.
I don't know.
Play a cat video or something.
I guess I can ask Brittany. Brittany, do you know anything about the sound?
We have sound.
Okay, we have
Very
sound.
good. All right.
Maybe the individual's TV.
We're not going to need the cat video, I guess.
We need the cat video. That's right. Okay. Back to defining a third world nation. Typically, third world nations have high debt because that small upper class that's running things typically gets the nation into debt. They borrow from the IMF or from other countries, and they run the country into debt.
And they have fiat currencies.
And they have fiat currencies.
Which promotes that.
Which are basically worthless currencies.
That's correct. Yeah. Right. That's to me, that's a real. We had a caller last week that we had that discussion, and that was one of the, I would say, key central descriptors of a third world. Third world country. And a declining, or even if you wanted to see the euphemistic, a declining power. You look at the declining powers throughout history, they all debased their currencies. That is, they took them off of a tangible standard of value and started printing the money, because that lets the politicians, who are the worst form of human being, frankly, by choice.
Right,
okay,
exactly.
Increasingly acquire more and more influence over the society that they govern.
In addition to the high debt that they have created by the ruling party and fiat currency and what have you, they have socialist, Marxist, and communist governments, as we addressed earlier.
Right, and all these things are kind of interrelated. I mean,
they are.
Do the Venn diagram, there'd be these big overlaps on all these things.
Major overlaps there. And they are corrupt in government and bureaucracy. So that pretty much defines the third world nation.
Right.
Now, if we look at our nation, what's happening, becoming rapidly becoming, we're rapidly meeting a lot of that criteria.
Well, years ago, late '90s, I traveled to Venezuela right before Chavez, took over and the communists took over, and I had a couple of people there telling me, you think your nation is corrupt, but you don't have any idea. Okay.
Right.
I mean, it's so rampant here. You're lucky if you can get to the airport and not have to go bribe somebody to get your bags. Okay. Yeah. We've never had to put up with that.
Right. We got a caller. Caller, thanks for calling to America in Danger. You're on the air. What's on your mind tonight?
Well, I'm trying to watch the show, and I don't know what the engineers are doing, because the show keeps breaking up and going to no signal.
Well, it's almost like we're in a third world country.
Anyhow, ask ask your engineers to find something to keep it straight.
Well, I'm sure. I think they're doing the best
They're
they can.
trying their best.
Yeah,
They absolutely are.
You know, sometimes
Hey,
these
y'all
things.
have a good day.
Thank you for calling.
You too. Thanks for calling. All right. Yeah. Everybody's trying the best they can.
Right. It's not. Sometimes these things. That's right. I mean,
equipment fails.
It does. Things go haywire.
Computers go out.
I'm very sympathetic to that.
As am I.
Yeah.
As am I. Well, you know, the looking at the conditions of a third world nation and looking at our nation, you know, we have currently a federal program encouraging a diminished productivity.
Absolutely.
You know, the additional unemployment that's being paid out to keep people, and it is keeping people from working.
Absolutely.
You know, these politicians and these bureaucrats who say, "Oh no, that's not stopping anybody from going back to work."
If they really believe that,
lie.
that's right. If they really believe that, they're stupid. We can add that to the list.
We can add that to the
If
list.
they really believe that, they're stupid.
They are.
Okay, and if they are being cynical about it and they're doing it to line their own pockets, then they're evil.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
you know, either way, there's the old joke about the evil party and the stupid party, and you know, which is it? But it doesn't matter. I mean, the effect
doesn't really matter.
the net effect is the same.
The net effect is the same, you know, and Biden, you know, in an effort to undermine the middle class even more, has basically thrown open the southern border
Thrown it open.
and encouraged people who lack education, who lack skills, who
Aren't even literate in their own language.
aren't even literate in their own language, to come here and bring dependence and what have you, and get on the social support systems here.
Right. Right.
Now, that's undermining the middle class, because guess who pays for all of those things?
That's right. That's right.
Is the middle class, working people in this country who pay for everything that the government, that the politicians promise you.
Well, see, here's the thing. Again, this may be a bit of a digression. It probably sounds like I beat this like a dead horse. But again, one of the reasons they hated Donald Trump is he demonstrated, you know, I mean, I like analogies. So imagine you're trying to troubleshoot an engine and you don't know about the governor, you know, the thing that actually is just intentionally put on there to limit the output of the engine, right? And everybody knows who's ever had a tractor or a lawnmower, they know about the governor,
That's
right?
right.
You
That's
get
right.
rid of the governor, the engine just boom, it takes off and runs. But if you didn't know about that, you'd sit there and scratch your chin and you'd be like, well, maybe we should do this, maybe we should do that. Donald Trump demonstrated that there's been an intentional governor put on our economy by these politicians. And all he did was get in there and all he did was implement some common sense, non-counterintuitive policies, and quickly the economy took off and the United States became energy independent. All these things happened. Pulling the veil off of these emperors, you know, new clothes politicians who are clearly liars and are implementing these policies on purpose. Everything that these people are doing is on. But if you want to understand what's going on in this country, ask yourself, if I were the enemy of this country and I were put in charge, what policies would I enact, okay, to destroy it? And suddenly it all starts to kind of make sense. Like, oh, well, I would do this, and I would do this, and I would do this, and I would do this, okay? Trump wasn't some genius. He just looked at it and said, well, I don't understand why we're doing this. Let's not do that. And of course, all these think tank conservatives who aren't any good, and all these politicians, they like to ring that, well, it's more complicated than that. We need to do this. And they double down on these policies that have literally destroyed the economic fabric of this country.
Yes, they have.
And he revealed that, and they hated him. They hated him so much for that they decided it doesn't matter what the consequences are. We're getting him out of there.
Yep, absolutely did. You know, the whole effort of this current administration to boost wages. All right, Donald Trump didn't demand a $15 an hour minimum wage.
Right.
What he did was say, you know what, let's take the chocks off the wheels of productivity. Let's back off on the taxation that these corporations are having to pay. And those wages rose. They rose. That's not theory.
That's right.
That's fact.
That's fact. That's
those
right.
wages, middle class wages, rose faster during the Trump administration than they had in 30 years.
Which in turn sent more money to the Treasury. Because of taxes. Okay,
Exactly.
that actually the revenue itself went up. I mean,
It did.
You know, you've got to believe. You know, people. That's all I think characterized by the Laffer curve, right? Which says, you know, there's an optimum point where you get the maximum return at a tax rate. Well, you almost have to believe that unless you know, because you have to look at the endpoints, and that's the thing that's useful to do when discussing these things is look at the extreme cases. Okay, if you tax zero, if your tax rate is zero, then clearly you get no money into the coffers.
Correct.
If you tax at 100%, then you're not going to get any money into the coffers because nobody's going to do anything to produce anything.
Exactly.
So clearly, there's somewhere in between that is optimum for a tax policy. I happen to think it's way down here at some low rate. You get the maximum amount without it inhibiting productivity. I don't believe in the income tax anyway. There's other ways to tax, tariffs, and so forth. Donald Trump was moving towards all of those things, and these globalists and these internationalists and these politicians, and I include Republicans in it, they hated it. They really hated it. Because it was so obvious. It's like, okay, I'm just doing it, and it made them look dumb.
Made them look dumb, and also it empowers the middle class.
That's right.
It empowers people when they earn a decent wage, when they're able to go to somewhere to work. You know, if you look at this area, just here in North Carolina, right now, you look at every place is short of workers. You cannot get workers.
That's right, and I'm hearing that from all kinds of small businesses.
Especially in the construction trades. And you know, the construction trades pay good wages.
They do, that's right.
I mean, it's hard work, but you get paid well for
and it's
it.
open to lots of people. I mean,
Open to
you know,
lots of people.
Right, if you just have any basic skill sets and you can do some things and are fundamentally physically able, you can go get some work.
Exactly. You can get work and you can move ahead.
Right.
All you have to do is just a tad more than everyone else, and you will move ahead because there is so much opportunity and so much demand for skilled workers. So to say, well, you know what, we got to raise these taxes, and these corporations, they're not paying their fair share. Well, they don't pay a fair share in taxes, they pay a fair wage. And if you try and somehow twist that and spin that into taxes, well, higher taxes reduce productivity. Higher taxes mean that corporations don't have the money to put in to new equipment, into hiring people.
And they just pass those costs along anyway.
They absolutely do.
That's just nonsense.
They absolutely do. It drives up costs. Look at the inflation that we have now, the transitory inflation that we have now.
Right.
All of that is brought about by the policies being put in place by the lying Biden administration.
Right.
I'm sorry, I can't phrase it any other way. They're a lying administration, and every bureaucrat in Washington right now is lying.
Well, I mean, the way I see it is that, you know, the Democrats are mostly just communists, and the Republicans are mostly just grifters.
Exactly.
You know, they're there to enhance their personal fortunes. I mean, our own two senators here. I mean, Tom Tillis and especially Richard Burr. Richard Burr, he got caught engaging in insider trading as in connection with the coronavirus pandemic. Okay, you know, these people have no principles whatsoever.
They have no principles. And to slide out of that, what did he do? He convened an investigation into Russian collusion.
Exactly. In other words, he let the powers that be say, well, look, I'll play along with your little, you know, anti-Trump narrative and anti-MAGA narrative if you'll just go light on me and don't put me in jail for doing something that we all know that we all do all the time.
Exactly.
Okay, that's exactly what went on there.
Exactly. Well, you know, and we're talking about this country swiftly moving toward third world nation status. And you know, the first thing Biden did when he went into office was shut down pipelines.
Right.
He shut down the oil industry, fossil fuels. He shut down fracking, which he said he wouldn't do.
Destroyed our newly acquired.
He promised he would do it, but said he wouldn't do it. So, you know.
He destroyed our newly acquired energy independence.
They absolutely did. And what did he do? He begged OPEC to produce more.
That was embarrassing.
Well, that's not the only thing that was embarrassing. You know, he begged the Taliban, gave them a list of Americans in Afghanistan, and begged them to protect them.
Right.
Give them safe passage. Well, apparently they didn't.
They're so busy patting themselves on the back that this has been a successful operation, this Afghanistan thing, that you have to assume that, well, maybe they're measuring success differently. I think their purpose is to diminish the United States stature.
They absolutely are.
Now, with that stated, I mean, I think the salient point here is that why are all these things happening to us? Because we have deviated from constitutional government as outlined in the U.S. Constitution. We have completely gotten away from those principles. Okay, we don't have any business really even being in Afghanistan for 20 years.
That's exactly right.
We probably didn't have any business being in the Middle East in general. Before that, we probably wouldn't have been attacked on 9/11 if we hadn't, and there's a lot to be said for the argument that they attacked us because they didn't like the fact that we were over there, meddling in their affairs. Well, why are we meddling in their affairs? Because of the energy situation.
Exactly.
Okay, we've got plenty of our own energy, but the left and the environmentalists and the communists in this country have had that off limits forever. Trump was throwing a monkey wrench into all of that.
Yes, he was.
Okay, and so it's like driving around with a dead body in your car. Anything is better than getting pulled. And they decided that anything is better than having Donald Trump be president for 4 more years. Yeah. They didn't care what the consequences were. They were going to get rid of him. And he's not even he was not even the best vehicle for the views that we hold. He just wasn't a globalist, leftist, America-hating,
And that's
communist.
And that's the optimum phrase there. He wasn't a globalist.
Right.
Because what we've got globalist corporations, big tech. These people are globalists. They don't care about this nation. They don't care about the middle class.
They don't.
Facebook and Google and Twitter, they'll tell you that they're protecting you, that they're looking out for you with their community standards and what have you, with their censorship and all. But these are woke globalist corporations who don't care. They see 1 billion people in China and India, and they'll sacrifice 320 million
easily
in a heartbeat to gain that market share over there.
And the thing that's so infuriating about this company is that only in the United States of America, with its still nominal, fealty to free markets, could those companies come to exist.
Exactly.
None of those companies came to exist in communist China.
Not the first one.
Right. Or even, pseudo-socialist Scandinavian countries.
Right.
Okay. They came to exist, or even the UK or Western Europe. They come to exist in the United States of America, and they are completely doing everything they can to destroy the very fertile environment that allowed them to come to exist.
They absolutely
That just makes me mad. It's that simple.
And then you couple those things, the Biden administration, the manipulation of the economy toward decreasing productivity and increased cost and inflation, the big tech corporations, throw in education on top of that.
Oh, yeah.
In North Carolina now, K through 12 state test passage rates in 2019, 58.5% passed. Mm-hmm. That's pretty poor. That's poor there already. In 2019. But guess what? In 2021, only 45% passed.
And I'll promise you,
we're on the downhill slope.
Well, and I'll promise you that if you were just like inflation, if you were to adjust for constant measures of knowledge in times past, it's probably 5%.
Right.
I mean, if you actually made this measurement and if you created a test that was based on standards that were imposed on students in this country 50 years ago, I bet most people couldn't do well at all.
You got that right. And with that, we got to take a little break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about the Texas Senate Bill 8 and what it's doing to shake up the feminist population of this country. So stay tuned for more America in Danger. We'll be right back.
Hey y'all, Russ Varnell here from the Russ Varnell Show right here on WHIG-TV. I want to invite you and you, hey, and you too, to come see myself and the whole Two Country Band Saturday, September the 11th at the Nashville Arts Center in Nash County, right there in Nashville on the main drive. Everybody knows about the Nashville Arts Center. What a great place to go see shows and hear music. The old church right there on the main drive close to the courthouse in Nashville. Come see myself and the whole Two Country Band Saturday, September 11th at 7 p.m. You can bring your grandma, your granddaddy, your grandchildren, your young'uns, your sons and daughters, and just bring yourself. Saturday, September 11th at 7 p.m. Going to be a big time. Myself and the whole Two Country Band will be looking for you. Y'all come, okay?
This is Nicholas Bellamy at Premier Equipment. I'm going to talk about the 4540 Mahindra. It's 38 horsepower, 4-cylinder engine. The weight of this tractor is 4,000 pounds. This tractor is perfect for bush hogging, distance, small garden, a hunting club tractor. Comes with a 7-year warranty, 2-year bumper to bumper, additional 5-year on the powertrain. You can have this tractor for $200 a month, and we have 20 of these tractors in stock. Premier Equipment is open during the week from 8 to 5:30 and on the weekends from 8 to 12.
Are you afraid to answer the phone because of bill collectors? A Chapter 13 plan can help. Chapter 13 allows people with too many bills to work out a debt repayment plan under federal law. It helps you control your debts instead of your debts controlling you. Chapter 13 stops creditors from harassing you and stops repossessions and foreclosures. It allows you to answer the phone again without fear or worry. Call H. Frank Allen, Attorney at Law, a debt relief agency providing bankruptcy relief under the Bankruptcy Code.
All right, well, in the news, Texas recently passed Senate Bill 8. And it passed with a pretty substantial majority.
Okay.
And it's an abortion bill, an anti-abortion bill, I should say. Now, this is the bill right here.
Okay.
It's 11 pages on regular copy paper.
Single space, yeah.
Single space, 11 pages. And I read through it because I wanted to see exactly what it did, because, you know, there are some people that are pretty much apoplectic out there right now.
Unhinged, I think is the word.
Yeah, I mean, NPR, which NPR, you know, NPR is National Public Radio. Isn't that what NPR stands for?
Yeah.
Well, that's funded by taxpayer dollars, and yet they are so biased.
Right, you want to defund something, let's defund them.
Defund NPR, exactly. Yeah. I advocated that for a long time.
No, likewise.
They are as biased as CNN.
Right.
But anyway, so I read through it, and, you know, there were a couple issues in there that kind of struck me as a little bit odd. You know, it says when a fetal heartbeat is determined, can be heard, then you can't have an abortion after that.
So what's the essence of the bill, though, right? Is it proscribes abortion past 6 weeks, essentially, right?
Essentially, yeah. They're saying 6 weeks, but, you know, 6, 8, you know, whenever the fetal heartbeat can be detected. Right. And sometimes that occurs around 6 weeks.
Right.
I think
there's a time marker there, the cessation of the last menstrual period, that kind of thing that's tied to it, Yeah.
So, anyway, the provisions that struck me as a little bit strange was that it provides no state official can enforce this bill, which is typically bills that are passed are enforced by state officials in one capacity or another, attorney generals, district attorneys.
Right. But now, is that true for isn't this essentially, I mean, my interpretation was that this is strictly a civil violation.
And it cannot...
Which requires a lawsuit on the part of somebody.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. State officials, a district attorney cannot file charges against a woman for having an abortion beyond the heartbeat limitation. So it's got to be an individual not employed by the state, essentially. And
basically a lawsuit.
A lawsuit, exactly. So that was a little interesting.
There may be some strategy there we don't understand. I'm not sure what the thinking is.
I think it's to avoid the Roe v. Wade thing, where the actual prosecutor was the one who was charged in Roe v. Wade.
Okay.
To nullify that.
Right.
Now, the second thing that I thought was rather interesting, and I'm not sure how I feel about this particular aspect, but it provides standing to anyone.
Right, in other words, anybody can bring suit.
Anyone can bring suit.
Against anybody they perceive as having transgressed.
Having transgressed, exactly. And to me, that's a little bit counter what I've always understood about the law. Now, I'm not an attorney.
I'm far from a legal expert, but that seems like is ready-made to be thrown out.
It does.
By the courts at a higher level.
It does. And how many cases have we seen thrown out because states lacked standing? Individuals lacked standing to challenge these election results.
Which often is just an excuse for not wanting to hear the case. They come up, they use some legerdemain to come up with, well, this person doesn't have, this entity doesn't have standing. Right. I don't know.
And in many of those cases, the evidence was never heard. It was dismissed, and the media ran with it, saying, "Oh yeah, it was thrown out of court because it had no merit." Well, there were no election cases heard that lacked merit.
Right.
They just weren't heard.
That's
if you don't hear the evidence, then you can't
render a judgment on that. That's right.
That's why they opted for the lack of standing ruling, But yeah, that was pretty strange to me. And the Roe v. Wade the decision was reached in 1973, so that was a long time ago. And that kind of set the tone that said, okay, well, this is how it's going to be in every state. There's a constitutional right to an abortion.
Right.
And that's been pushed to the limit. And, had that not been pushed to that limit, then you might not be receiving this pushback at this time.
Well, there are a lot of legal types and individuals who will say, I'm not categorically opposed to some, level of abortion rights. I mean, just put that aside. But this was bad law. Right. There is nothing in the. I mean, Roe v. Wade. That really was that constitutional right to abortion was just created out of whole cloth.
It was.
There's nothing in the Constitution which confers at the federal level a right to an abortion, a right to have an abortion, or to pursue one. I guess would be the right way to state that. So. All an overturning of Roe v. Wade would do is turn it back to the states. Exactly. So you'd have plenty of states, California and New York and Illinois and New Jersey. Oh, it'd be big business for them. Right. I mean, you really just have to kill your unborn child, make a little medical tourism trip out of it and go to California. I'm sure a lot of spas set up. It can be a big party for you. Okay. I mean, in other words. None of this stuff that we're talking about is going to really impact somebody's ability to do that. And 6 weeks is a darn long time. They act like, look, in the past with abortion law in this country, it wasn't allowed for any reason. Right. It was a crime and a criminal act.
Right.
Okay. Right. You tell me, we're going to give you a 6 week window to decide whether you want to kill your neighbor. I can work with that schedule. So I mean, to me, it's really a very liberal. There's no teeth in this of any kind.
There are no teeth.
And yet people are getting so exercised about it and talking about the American Taliban, which clearly demonstrates they have no understanding of what the Taliban and those societies are like. The whole thing. Yeah.
There are protesters out there right now with the signs "My body, my choice," and that's what they've gone on for many, many years. It's my body, so I have a right to decide.
Except for I got to get a vaccine.
Except you got to get a vaccine.
That's right.
So it's no longer your body, your choice.
That's right.
And what they come out with is, but you're jeopardizing people's lives because you won't take the vaccine. Well, doesn't an abortion ultimately terminate a life?
And that is the central element of this argument that nobody wants to talk about. Yeah. Okay, where do rights vest? At what point?
At what point, exactly.
And if we determine, and I understand that reasonable people might disagree about that. I'm not just supremely dogmatic on that issue. But it is not fair to say that a person is some kind of extremist or wants to perpetuate some kind of Handmaid's Tale society.
Oh yeah,
because they think that an unborn child, especially up to and including the moment of birth, is somehow not a person.
Right.
And that's where these leftists have gone. I mean, they've demonstrated what barbarians they are.
Absolutely,
that governor up there in Virginia, we all heard some of his quotes regarding, how. I mean, these people literally support late term. The day the birth canal is opening, abortion. Okay, well that's just friggin' murder. I don't care. Annie, you can cut that any way you want. That's what that is. And so they look like savage barbarians supporting that to me.
They do. And I've heard these academics talk about, that fetus couldn't survive outside the body.
Well, neither can a newborn baby.
Well, exactly right. And look at it this way: if your mother was on life support, and there was a 90% chance that in 8 months she'd be okay. She'd be on life support and live. So if you pull the plug at that point, is that not murder?
That's exactly right.
So that argument just doesn't hold. So many of these arguments that they put forth are they're illogical.
Right, and they act like, you're a man, so you don't have any right to weigh in on this. Well, then I guess I can't weigh in on 1,000 different issues.
And women can't weigh in on 1,000 different issues.
That's exactly right. I mean,
it works both ways.
That's exactly
what's good for the goose is good for the gander.
That's exactly right. And I'm sorry, an unwanted pregnancy is not a cancer diagnosis.
Right.
It disrupts your life. All right, and if you carry it to term and have it and give it up for adoption, that's a big deal.
Yes, it is.
But it's not the end of your life.
Right.
People put up with illnesses that put them out of commission for 2 and 3 years at a time.
Well, that's right.
Okay, and to act like pregnancy is tantamount to some kind of illness. Okay, that's also pretty disgusting philosophy.
It absolutely is. So, it'll be interesting to see where this goes. And, right now there's really no definitive answer on any of this.
Right.
We'll see where it goes. Are we seeing a pendulum swinging back a little bit?
Well, my understanding is that younger people, Gen Z types, actually are surprisingly pro-life.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm so cynical. I worry that that the culture has degraded so much that this could be used to mobilize these wild-eyed, crazy, left-wing, college-educated types to, make this the hill to die on.
Absolutely.
And they will. I mean, this is abortion is a sacrament to the left.
It is. It is. It absolutely is. We've already seen the mobilization when a drug addict thug is murdered by a policeman.
That's right.
We see the whole country go into flames. I'm certainly not defending any of those actions, but the bottom line is, Brown, Floyd, they were not upstanding good citizens.
Well, they weren't, and
they didn't deserve to be exexecuted or killed.
Anything even really ask questions about that. I mean, fentanyl in the system.
Exactly.
But I mean, and contemporaneously, the exact same thing happened to a white fella down in Texas. The exact same sequence of events. He died. Nobody even knows about that.
Nobody even knows about it.
Right.
That's the whole lies of the media, And if we want to jump back to the lies right quick, let's go through this list, because there are any number of additional lies that we didn't have time to cover. Donald Trump was called xenophobic for saying the virus likely came out of the Wuhan lab, and we have evidence now that it in fact did.
Right. Wasn't even a possibility until it was.
It was. Exactly. We were told that we're following the science, until we find out that, it's not science, it's just
politics.
Yeah. We're told that we must hunker down in our homes, but it's okay for the politicians and bureaucrats to travel around.
That's right.
Yeah.
Or that protest. My favorite was that the protesting. That was an act of that was a public health. Actually, they weren't risking COVID because the racism was such a public health crisis that this outweighed that. But you and I want to open our business. Well, can't have that.
And the protests were mostly peaceful. We all remember that line.
As they reported that standing in front of burning buildings.
Yeah. And then George Floyd was killed because of racism.
Right.
Well, no, he was killed because of a poor police tactic or whatever you want to call it, but it wasn't racist.
Well, and make note, there was no finding of a racial component in that trial. Not a single finding of that, and the prosecutor did not pursue that angle. That was a media fiction.
That's exactly right. We're told that we must not take any vaccine developed under the Trump administration. We were told that by Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
That's correct.
And now we're told, you have to take it, and you have to get a booster to boot. We were told that the PCR test was the gold standard testing for COVID. Now we find out that the FDA has revoked its emergency use status because it's so inaccurate. It was so just fraudulent. It was created based on a theorized model of the virus because there were no samples of the virus available upon which to develop the test. That's following the science, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Now we're told we got to take the vaccine because Biden's in office. We must take an additional booster because the White House says so. Now we had 2 people resign from the FDA because they're like, no, that's not. Or was it the CDC? I can't remember where they resigned from.
Same difference.
Yeah. We were told that Hunter Biden peddling influence to Russia and China was simply disinformation. That was just more Russian disinformation.
My favorite, Hunter Biden is a great artist.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Hunter Biden's a great artist. $500,000 per painting.
You know what? I'm in the wrong business, man. I tell you what.
Me too. And, I can blow some paint through a straw myself.
Right.
We were told that COVID deaths were in the millions. Well, come to find out, they were counting them wrong.
Yeah.
That you must wear a mask even if vaccinated. Well, reports coming out every day that masks simply do not.
Well, that's a counterintuitive thing they're telling me. If you just examine the actual pore size of the mask and what everybody says about them, that's just theater. That's just
absolutely is. We're told that the U.S. border is secure, that the Afghan refugees are fully vetted, that the Afghan pullout was a success.
My friend asked me today, how many terrorists do you think are sprinkled in those Afghan refugees? And I replied, the question is, how many Afghan refugees are sprinkled in all those terrorists? I mean,
absolutely.
Who knows what they're bringing in here?
But, Guido Cuomo and Fareed Zakaria say that we're xenophobic for being concerned that there are terrorists coming over in these unvetted Afghani refugees.
Right.
And unfortunately, we are out of time. But think about that. Think about all the lies that we've been told.
Right.
The documented lies that we've been told. That's not rhetoric. These are lies that have been
in your face lies. I mean, just like, okay, we don't even care because you're just, we know it's not going to matter, so we're going to lie to you. Exactly. What are you going to do about it?
Exactly. And with that, we got to sign off. I'm Robert Cressionnie.
I'm John Gatsis.
Tune in next week for more America in Danger, Saturdays at 6:30. Good night. Have a good week.